This is Courtenay Taylor. I play Jack in Mass Effect. And I just want to say, I love everybody at Koobismo. Got it?
Hey, this is Jeff with Koobismo. Today we are launching a new feature at Koobismo.com. Over the next few months, we'll be sitting down with some of the biggest names in Mass Effect, BioWare, and the gaming world to give you an inside look at what it takes to create some of the most epic moments in gaming. We are honored that our very first guest is one of our all-time favorite people. She's a fascinating person who we just couldn't get enough of. So please enjoy as Natalie, Nikki, and I sit down with the original psychotic biotic, Courtenay Taylor.
So I'll try and speak words and things. So just to start off, for people who might not know, but how did you initially get into acting?
Everyone always said I should be an actor, and so, I was fairly contrarian in my earlier years, so I was like, no. That was my punk rock phase, so I was interested in other things, and so I kind of felt like I could be one, so I was interested in trying to pursue other things, and that sounds weird, but that my personality was already kind of lent itself to acting, and so it didn't hold a lot of intrigue for me until I was in college, and I decided to take an acting. I guess I was so arrogant. I was like, oh, it'll be easy, so I'll take this acting class because I needed some extra credits, and I got my ass completely handed to me, so it was awesome. And I think because it wasn't, because I had the kind of personality where people were like, oh, you should be an actor, and then I got my ass kicked in acting class, then it got intriguing for me, because it actually wasn't, it was really difficult. So then my ears sort of perked up, and I was like, what is this acting thing? It's way harder than I thought. And, it way more involved than I thought. And so I loved the challenge of it. I loved, the preparation, and I took some acting classes. I ended up getting enough units to have a minor in college. And then a couple of years later, I did a few other things. I graduated and sort of went off to do a couple other things. But when I finally sort of decided that I wanted to be an actor, I was working at a gym, and I felt like I was performing all the time anyway, because I was teaching classes and, talking in front of people for an hour, every time I taught a class. So people, again, it kind of came up, and I decided to go and get some, do some more, acting classes and stuff. And then I had the choice to move to Chicago and open up another gym, or move to LA. And my boss at the gym was like, you should just go pursue being an actor. This isn't, what you're meant to do, which I don't know how to take that, but so, I was teaching a lot of boxing classes and spinning classes and stuff at the time. And I didn't think I wanted to move to Chicago. I thought it was just easier to move to Los Angeles and give it a try. So I came down here, and I kind of jumped into, although I didn't have that much experience in voiceover, I actually had been, far more trained in, with the idea of doing on-camera acting. The voiceover kind of just came naturally. I took a voiceover class, and I was like, this is it. This is it. I didn't even know that you could do voiceover really until I got, turned down for, I was going to go into a master's program in New York, and they said they wouldn't consider me because I had such bad vocal cord nodes from teaching all these boxing classes, and so they wouldn't accept my application unless I went and had speech therapy. And my acting teacher at American Conservatory Theater said, I think you have a great voice, and you should look into voiceover. And I didn't know what it was. And so she sort of steered me to a class. And then that was like a slam dunk, where I was just like, I would do this every single day for the rest of my life.
That's amazing.
This element of it, the other stuff is great too. And I love doing on camera as well. But the voiceover stuff was like I had been prepping for that my whole life, and I didn't even know it.
I think with the voice acting stuff, it's like you get to be so much more flamboyant and crazy than you would be in say on on-screen acting. It's all just about the voice. That's what I like about it.
Well, I think the psychology of it is, especially like living in Los Angeles, I think this gets sort of reinforced that you really can only do a very narrow thing if you do on camera. Like you have a type, you have a look, you have a thing that you do, and it might not even be what you're all about, but it's how people perceive you. And I feel like the world of voiceover is just, there's so much wider range of things that you can do and be cast as. And if you were a kid who had a great imagination, I don't think I don't think anybody, well, maybe now, but I don't think most people as kids go, I want to grow up and be an actor and just play one thing.
Yeah.
I just want to be like the ingenue when I grow up. They say, I want to be a princess. I want to be a fighter pilot. I want to be, the president or whatever. And I've been a fighter pilot. I've been a biotic. I've been, a news reporter like Nancy Grace, which is not anything that I would get to play on camera. So, that's to me what acting is all about. And voiceover, you certainly get to play a million more things than you do on camera.
Yeah, well, that leads us on to the next question quite nicely, actually. You've played some absolutely cracking characters. So out of, like, it's a bit of a fangirl question, but do you have a favorite?
I have some favorites. I really loved doing, her name is Marla. She's in the Dead to Rights. I love doing, I'm kind of obsessed with Nancy Grace. And so it was awesome to kind of use her as a template. I loved her. She was just a small part in this video game, but to be able to play this kind of psycho megalomaniac reporter was something so different than I normally get to play. She was in Dead to Rights Retribution. That was the name of the game. And it was completely like not anyone that I get to play. And then, so I loved her because she was so different. And of course I loved Jack. I mean, Jack only comes along like once in a lifetime. You get somebody who, writes like you talk, and, it's very rare that you get that where you're just like, this, I don't even have to think about this. Which, I mean, I did end up thinking about her, but I was like, whoa, I saw her picture when they showed me and read the lines, and it was like, I just felt like it was very similar to a certain part of me. So that one, Jack, was very much one of my favorites.
Mine too.
And I also love, I love playing, I guess, probably all of the sort of outer points of the things that I've played, because I also loved playing Arwen in Lord of the Rings. I just loved doing something that was, as far away as you could probably get from me, and still being able to like acknowledge that part. Like everybody's got a Jack and an Arwen and, probably a Marla in them too.
I have to say you did a really good British accent with the AI in Halo Wars.
Well, my mom's English, so
yeah.
I have spent some time in England, but my mom's English and my dad's Australian, so they're not perfect, but I like to think that they're, I had an English producer on that, which was kind of nerve-wracking. That's really when you're doing accents and you have someone sitting there who's from there, and you're just like, please acknowledge if I suck.
It's just that shaking the heads like, oh.
Yeah, but then when they're nodding, you're like, yeah, that's right. That's great. That's what happens with your mom nagging you for 25 years in an English accent. You're like, yeah, it's all come to. Again, I feel like having an Australian dad, having an English mother, loving commercials, like jingles and stuff like that when I was little, reading books out loud to my mom when we were stuck in traffic coming home from school in San Francisco growing up, all of that kind of, when I discovered voiceover, I was like, oh, this is great. I already do all this stuff and someone's going to pay me for it. Awesome.
All right, well, thank you for answering my questions. I think we'll be going on to Nikki now for some voiceover-based questions.
Hi, Courtney. I'm Nikki.
Hi.
So mentally, how do you prepare yourself for a character, and how do you like get into character and stay there?
It's a little tricky because, you know, we generally don't get the scripts beforehand. So it's not like on camera where I can, you know, obsess over it, which is probably good for me. You know, you generally get, the process is just you get a snippet, you audition for it, and if you get it, then sometimes they just say, you know, you've got the job. It was this character, and it might have been 2 or 3 months ago, and you may not even remember who the character was. I mean, obviously there's standouts that you would know. If you're like, I'm auditioning for Catwoman right now, you probably remember that. But if it's, you know, Mary from some game that you've, you know, that's just coming out, it doesn't, you know, you don't get a lot of time to prepare. So I think the preparation is really more in the everyday paying attention to things, as opposed to preparing for, I mean, obviously if you're doing multiple sessions on a video game, you then have a chance to kind of go, like with Jack, I definitely had an opportunity to kind of go, okay, this is where we're going with her. I got backstory on her, so I was able to, you know, do some work on it. But in general, it's kind of by the seat of your pants. And so for me, the work is in paying attention to how people speak, you know, working on accents and things like that before you get in the booth, so that when they ask you to make adjustments, that you're able to do it. You know, paying attention, for example, again, Marla Bates and Dead to Rights, you know, my preparation was that I already was watching Nancy Grace. And so when I came in and they were like, are you familiar with this reporter? I was like, oh, yeah. You know, she's this sort of, you know, this like template of a certain kind of person. So to pay attention to those things, you know, to when you're watching movies about fairy, you know, I'm constantly at home when I'm watching movies, I'm repeating lines from people on the screen so that I can change, you know, be aware of different timings and different inflections and different accents, and, you know, trying to sort of putting on their shoes before I actually have to walk in them, so that when, you know, I show up and they're like, hey, you know, can you walk in these? And I'm like, yeah, I was just practicing that, you know? So that's the easiest. I mean, I'm sure if I were Commander I mean, I don't know how, like, when you have a long period of time, you know, I'm sure some people do get scripts and things like that. But in my experience, it's always been kind of do the work before you need it, because you don't know what they're going to ask for in the room.
Voice acting, when you're in the booth, you're usually alone, and you don't really have much of a chance to play off the other actors. Is this challenging, or is it easy for you?
It depends. Sometimes we have people in the room. You know, sometimes we do group reads. That doesn't happen very often, I think, you know, for a myriad of reasons, but also because we all talk too much. And so we spend a lot of time with the directors being like, okay, back to the script. No, I don't know. Like, usually you have somebody, I find in on-camera people, your readers are probably less invested. I find that most of the time the people in video games that I'm reading with, they're the director, you know, they've been doing this for a million years. They're not giving you a flat read. They're explaining, okay, so this is the scenario, this is what's happening, and then they're giving you the line before so that you can kind of, you know, you're not just imagining it or reading it off the page. They'll say, you know, hi, I'm so-and-so, can you tell me how to get here? And so then you kind of have an idea of how to answer them back. So it's a little bit in a void, but not completely. And I find that most of the people that I work with are very talented, very good readers, and very thorough in letting you know what the scenario is. I mean, it definitely helps if you have a good imagination. But I definitely have gone back when I, you know, and listened to clips and stuff and kind of been like, I wish I played that a little differently. But you usually get, at least 3 times to play a line. So you get an opportunity to say, like, how much of a stress is this on her? Is she worried? Is this just a run of the mill? Like, even when someone's like attacking you or whatever, you're like, how close are they to you? What's the proximity? Am I scared of these people, or am I going to kick their ass? And so you get an opportunity to kind of play out different scenarios. Of course, I had to bring it back to ass kicking. Sorry. But do I love this person? Am I attracted to this person? Or is this somebody like, I'm just like, yeah, move on, soldier, or whatever. So, they do give you a lot of information most of the time. And then with stuff like combat things, you're generally like, are we winning? Are we losing? Are they 10 feet from me? Are they 50 yards? And then that kind of informs your read.
Do you think it's more difficult to voice act, or is on camera more difficult?
For me, on camera is harder. There's just a lot of elements that are there's a lot of elements out of your control in anything, but there's just a lot more elements you're being judged. Like, I'm not in charge of what my character looks like in voiceover. Someone else is in charge of that. So, like, that's a minimal concern. You're not having to judge sort of camera framing and things like that you are when you're doing on-camera stuff. So, and I also work a lot more in voiceover. So it comes, everything gets easier with practice. I find voiceover, I'm more facile in voiceover, but also that the two really do inform each other. So the more on-camera stuff I do, I think the better my voiceover gets, and vice versa. They do bring up things, normally the things that I would normally take into consideration for voiceover, I might overlook for on-camera when it's a perfectly viable, thing to think about. I used to think they were, sort of mutually exclusive, but I'm sure people who kind of tread in both camps can, more often than I do, can speak more to that. But yeah, and I find that as I do more on-camera acting, like, I'm starting to bring in more of like playing around with things. Like, I would do anything in voiceover. I'll try anything. I'll be like, oh, let's do an accent, or just things like that. And I always felt like the rules in on-camera were a little less flexible that way, but I don't think they are anymore. So, I just went out for a gypsy and on-camera, and, I just sort of in the room was like, can I put an accent on her? And I feel like a lot of those elements of voiceover really bring the character to life for me much more when I bring that freedom that I have in voiceover into on camera. But I think it takes practice, at least for me.
So on the technical side, do you have any tips or tricks for producing the best vocals you can, not talking too much before you go into the booth, or drinking hot tea or something like that?
I think it sort of depends. It's interesting. Like, I watch some of my friends who have different vocal qualities than I do, and how they're much more careful with their. For me, if I'm a little hoarse, nobody seems to really notice that much. So I think it really, if you have a really clear voice, then it might require a little more babying, because you can hear sort of discrepancies in a voice like that more. But for me, oh my God, I know I'm probably gonna just be saying the wrong thing, but I chew a lot of gum. I get dry mouth, and so I chew a lot of gum, and I do vocal warm-ups. And this is obviously just works for me, but it's not hard and fast for everyone. But I think that the gum keeps my mouth lubricated, so I constantly am taking. If you ever saw like footage of me, I usually have a piece of gum on the end of my finger when I'm doing my voiceover. So gross, but it's, you know, because I drink a lot during the sessions, and I do keep like throat lozenges, things like that. Like for me, vocal dryness is the killer. It's not, you know, whether I have a cold or anything like that, because the way my voice sounds. But if there's an issue where I have to have a really clear tone, sometimes commercially they want me to be higher or clearer, I absolutely drink a lot. I try not to talk, which is fucking impossible for me. And I keep gum and lozenges handy all the time. There's also something called I think I told Natalie about them, the golden throat drops.
Yeah, you mentioned those on Twitter. I still have no idea what they are.
You can get them on Amazon, and they're like a Chinese herbal lozenge, and there's also a tea that you can drink that's just, I couldn't get it down, but the lozenges are good, and they seem to do quick remedies for, you know, if you have a sore throat or any kind of inflammation. Now, my girlfriend, who is very well known, she does a couple great animated series, she brings in like green apples. She drinks a special tonic with lemon and honey and peppers, some kind of peppers, I think. You know, she's got a whole science down, but I just chew gum. There's also cyclone cider if you have like kind of a gooey voice. That's like hot peppers and cider. Not your kind of cider, Natalie.
I got excited then. I was like, I can drink cider?
It'd be great, right? Like, that and a cigarette and you're good to go. No, it's cyclone cider. It's just like it'll kind of take the goo out of your voice, but it doesn't taste very good.
What techniques do you use during your recording?
You know, I generally, I was taught to use, you know, basically do like the hang 10 sign and keep the mic about 6 inches away. And, you know, if you're kind of like popping your P's, you can stick your pointer finger in front or a pencil in front of you if for some reason you get poppy on the mic. But other than that, my like vocal techniques for for doing stuff is generally, you know, just ask your engineer, if you're working with an engineer and they want something, if they want you to sound like you're leaving or, you know, tilting off axis, that I just try and stay far enough away that I'm not on top of it and watch my P's.
The hardest bit is when you're shouting, because doing the latest Jack episode, I had to really scream because it's like, Rodriguez is dead, no. But then I must have done about 10 takes because it was just literally I had to stand across from the room from the microphone.
Did you introduce yourself on that?
Yeah, we're all just across different parts of the world, just recording at home, pretty much.
Well, in those cases, like for auditions and stuff, I mean, I generally try and get someone else to engineer me because I'm not very technically inclined that way. But generally, you know, you can sort of take your tone down and then normalize the track afterwards if you have that on your whatever you're using. But yeah, I mean, I feel like when in those situations, just yelling, like you can kind of draw more on the emotionality of what's going on as opposed to just screaming. You know, I certainly have done games where I just screamed, you know, I just yelled, and then someone else is in charge of making sure I'm not blowing them out and making sure that if I'm talking beforehand and then I yell or scream, that it's, you know, the levels aren't crazy. But in general, when someone's dying, you can, you know, heighten your emotionality. And I think it takes the place of just yelling. You know, I think it's a good opportunity to kind of say, okay, how can I convey this? Obviously, if they're getting cut down by, like, you know, snipers, Um, that's one thing. But if you're, if you're sort of shaking your fists at the sky because someone's died, that's the time to dig down emotionally and see what can be brought up as opposed to just volume.
I really tried to like picture myself as Jack. It sounds really geeky, I know, but I was just like, right, I know I am Jack. I care about Rodriguez and everyone else, and they've just died in front of me. And
Yeah.
I think my neighbors thought I was being murdered because I was just like screaming in my bedroom, like, no.
Now that's it, and that's probably the hardest time is when you're doing stuff from home. It's just having to be like, okay, I don't care what the people in the next hotel room think is going on, but you can be cinematic about it. Is really, I mean, that's to me what video games are about, is trying to bring that cinematic quality to the lines and imagining, if you were in the movie, what would it look like? And, would it be like a long shot of you, standing there, or would it be a close up on your face? And if it was a close up on your face, then it's not about the volume. So I try and imagine the movie of the video game and see if that brings up, something else other than just, the volume of it.
I suppose we've got it easy then, since we do it from the comic, which is very cinematic the way Koobs has done it. It's like it could be a movie.
Yeah, I mean, you guys get to look at all that stuff beforehand, yeah?
Yeah.
See, so that's kind of
lucky.
fantastic to do. Yeah. I mean, a lot of the times we don't get that most of the time. I mean, I've had a few animatics, played and things like that, but in general, we're not privy to that kind of stuff. So you have to make sure that that your imagination is fine-tuned, just, and give them the long shot, the vocal long shot, the vocal close-up, and then let them choose.
So just gonna go on to some Jack-based questions.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry, there's nothing about the DLC or anything like that.
Spoiler. Yeah.
Just to start with, like, how did you get connected with BioWare? Like, how did you go just for an audition, or were you selected to be in it?
I've auditioned. I mean, I've auditioned for BioWare before. I don't really know what their process is, and I actually don't even remember. I mean, my audition for Jack was probably 4 years ago. It was only when I got in there and realized, when they started talking to me about her, where I was like, "Whoa!" So I don't even know if the audition for her was anything sort of out of the ordinary. But I had auditioned for Dragon Age before.
I think I remember reading on IMDb, you did quite a lot in Origins. And one that I didn't know about was that you were cocky female dwarf, apparently.
Yeah.
And I played with that voice, so completely didn't know.
That's funny. Yeah, I had read for BioWare before, a couple things that I had not gotten, and so I don't know if they were just, if they picked me out of a crowd, or if they were like, oh, we sort of know her at this point. We've had her audition for a few things. I mean, I've been called back for things, and I don't know. I had worked with the director, Ginny McSwain. I had worked with her before as well. From when I started out on a few things. So she also knew what I was capable of. So maybe she had a hand in it. I don't know. I only really remember going to the session and then being like, oh, wow, this is going to be cool. Once I got there, that's when the fun began. So, but I don't know about the audition. I'm so sorry. Everyone else asked me that, and I was like, that was like 2008, right? Again,
I don't know time. What are you talking about?
Honestly, I mean, it's a little bit of a protection too. Is that like, you can't sit there and obsess about all these things that things come through that I auditioned for that I'm like, oh, I want that, and then you just have to put it behind you. And so I almost feel like sometimes I just purposely forget about things so that I'm not, crying in my room that I didn't get, some role that I really wanted, and then sort of it comes up, you'll see someone or they'll say they're working on something and you're like, oh, I wanted that. But, so I think that's also part of it. You really, and everyone says this on camera and voiceover, like you just have to like do the audition and move on and not think about it, because it'll just eat you from the inside if you keep, wondering about that stuff. So I don't track things. I don't keep my scripts, until I'm hired. I just try and keep it, just another great day. It was a lot of fun. And then, something comes back to you a month later, you get hired for something and you're like, oh, wow. And then you get in there and you're like, sweet. Oh, I remember this. This is great.
Well, it makes sense, because then, like you said, you'd be like sobbing in the corner having a breakdown somewhere if you really wanted something and you didn't get it. So
yeah, and I've only managed to start doing that. I've only managed to start doing that, like, on camera recently. But for voiceover, you just have to really trust that there's going to be more, and that everyone gets what is intended for them. And I do feel like Jack was, a shining example of something that, like, that part was right for me. And, the other parts, it's really about who tells the story the best. I hope, in my mind, this is what I tell myself. If it's not about, please don't tell me. But I feel like who tells the story the best, who brings the character to life the best, and that's the person that needs to tell the story. And if it's not you, it's not you. So. Yeah,
I honestly could not imagine Jack with any other voice, because it's like it sounds really cheesy, but it was meant to be like Jack is a badass, and it's like no one else could have voiced it, quite honestly. And I am a bit like geeky honored that I get to do a bad impression of you. It's good.
That's great. I'm honored too that I ended up, getting that. Like, again, I wouldn't have known if I didn't get her, but I feel like sometimes, every once in a while, the universe gives you a little jewel and says, like, look, it fits. It's you, and I get the, I just got hired for something for on camera where there was a snafu, and I didn't get the script, and I walked in, I thought I was just meeting the director. I don't know, like, gonna say hi, and I would get this, pick up the stuff, and we would come back. I don't know what I was thinking, but I picked up it was 8 pages that they gave me, just a cold read, and I was like, she talks like me. And it was so easy to pick up the lines, and, so every once in a while you get a little gifty from the universe that way, I think.
Well, I hope I get some in the future.
You will. There is room for everyone, and everyone has, something to contribute.
Well, we hope so. With our little group of insane people making the comics.
No, you know what? That's not insane at all. Like, you guys are doing what you wanted to do, and I really, fair fucks to you for it, because, to just go ahead and take something that you love and continue it, that's what's so great about this time, in technology, is that, people can just be like, you know what, I want to do this thing, and I'm putting it on YouTube, and we're shooting it with this little handy camera, or, I'm in Manchester, you're in, Pasadena, Chino Hills, and we're going to do something together. I mean, it's magic. It's friggin' magic. It's amazing. And so, to really take advantage of that, you guys are like the forerunners of this stuff. You're on the cutting edge of it, and I absolutely salute you. I think it's amazing.
Oh, thank you very much. So moving on, so we don't eat up your entire day. With the multiple story arcs and things and emotions that your character could take on, specifically with Mass Effect, and because it is multiple choice. I mean, there's no set script, there's no set storyline for one person. It changes so much. So was that difficult for you to just be like how did they do it in the booth with you? Was it just right, we're going to go through this sort of story, but then we're going to change it? Or was it just right, now you're sad, now you're happy, now they've just told you to get out of the cabin because they don't want to romance you, sort of thing?
Yeah. It's generally they kind of go down one story road. It's not happy, now you're sad, now you're pissed. I mean, sometimes it's like that, but in general, they'll sort of take you down with Mass Effect, they sort of took you down the road. Like, here's the scenario, this is where it's going. Okay, now we finished that possibility. Now kind of reset, and here's a different outcome. So it wasn't like line to line jumping around being, completely bipolar, but I could do that because I mean, it's not that for me, I'm not a very even keeled person. So it's, to sort of change on a dime is not completely out of the question for me. And so, which is probably more about my personality than you guys need to know. But no, I mean, like, if somebody could, I could walk out of here and have, completely have my day go a totally different direction. So to me, it's just a sort of microcosm of that. You could say, like, you just met this person, you're absolutely in love with them. And then, okay, this person's totally rejecting you. I mean, I think we've all had stuff like that happen.
Yes, it's just like
maybe not
from your life.
Yeah, but it's mostly, I think, again, that's part of the thing that I was as a little kid, I was one of those kind of emotional little kids, like, that could cry, and my like other siblings sort of even keeled, and I was always the one everyone's like, oh no. But I think that kind of feeds into it if you really can tap into your emotions easily. And kind of go there, even though you don't have to. That's kind of the beauty of acting. Like, you can tap into things that have happened from your life, but you can also say, like, like you said, with Rodriguez, like, what would you do if you were standing there and all of a sudden this person was just gone, or these people? It's just the what if, and being open enough and unafraid enough to kind of go there. I mean, I had an audition the other day for a woman who was suicidal, and she's about to jump off of a ledge, and it's like, I have never been on a ledge. but can you really just kind of calm yourself down enough to kind of go, okay, well, what would it be like to really have your toes over the edge of a building and feel the wind and things like that? And that sort of thing definitely enters into what would happen if you stepped off something and it got blown up, and you turned around and it wasn't there anymore. And if you could really just go like, oh wow, that'd be that'd be really harsh. Not the commenting on it, but the actual, like, what does it feel like when I turn around and there's nothing there anymore? It's space. And being able to kind of go there, I think, is one of the, what talented actors are able to do.
Okay. So Jack is one of the absolute fan favorites. It's plastered all over the internet. She's my damn favorite because she's my homegirl. But how does it feel knowing that there's literally, like, thousands upon thousands of people out there, like, who will just say, like, she's my favorite because of the way that you did it? Like, it's not so much, for me, it's not so much like just the character herself, it's the way that you delivered the lines. It's it's the entire package, basically.
Wow. It's awesome. Honestly, it's like, I was very happy when I realized who Jack was, because I feel like she's not the kind of person that's represented so much and some people say, oh, she's reminiscent of other characters and other franchises and stuff. But for me, that emotional journey that she has, and I speak in terms of just general media, because obviously, television and movies and things like that she is a different kind of woman and is definitely not your sort of classic, beautiful, well-behaved woman. And, she's far beyond that. She's beyond sort of a, rebellious hottie, even, that when media sort of that's the other end of it. You're sort of this well-behaved woman, or this, like, sexy rebel woman, but she's really like in your face, and is sort of unapologetic and unpopular in the beginning. And I felt like I had concerns that people would really hate her, just because I felt like there was a lot of, I could really relate to her. So it was a little personal. But, before the game came out, there was a lot of stuff on the boards about, people were going to shoot her out of the airlock, and they already hated her. And I was like, I was worried that people wouldn't give her a chance to play out, because I knew what her story was. But I'm thrilled that people ended up liking her. I know that some people changed their minds about her, who were hell-bent on, hating her from the beginning. And some people still hate her, and that's fine too, because I just wanted to do something. I'm happy that people had some sort of reaction to her. And I feel like, not to get so deep into this, but I can't help it, because that she really is self-expressed, and that to have been able to make a character that was popular, who really wasn't necessarily in charge of her emotions all the time, but had a good arc, and who wasn't afraid to just be herself. I don't know that that's really out there as much as it probably should be, that you can absolutely, be. I loved reading that people thought she was hot. I loved the fact that, that she looked punk rock to me, and that, people still found her, attractive. Some people didn't, but the fact of the matter is, in any situation, be yourself, because you can never control who's going to like you and who's going to not like you. And you might as well be yourself and have people hate you or love you than have people think, hey, she's all right. What was her name again? And I think that's kind of a good, it makes me so happy. I was signing autographs when Mass Effect 3 came out, and a girl pulled me aside and said, you thank you for playing this character. Thank you for putting these characters out there that are a good example for my nieces. And I thought to myself, at first I was like, really, Jack? But it's true in the bigger picture of Jack, that you don't necessarily, she's a lesson to not dismiss people for the way they look, and to not, sort of alter the way that you are to get by. I mean, she definitely learned things and turned, had different elements of her character, but as just a lesson to, like, if young girls are playing that game, maybe a little more impulse control would be good. But ultimately, that everyone has redeeming qualities, that everyone has something to say, and something, a journey, and that everyone, no matter what they look like or act like, as long as you're kind of true to who you are, you're going to get where you're supposed to go. And people are going to, there are people out there that are going to love you. And so my concerns about people hating Jack were quickly put to rest, because I found that, like, the Jackalites, which I think is such a great name, were so vocal. I mean, I try not to read the boards, but the people that defended her, the arguments that they made, I was just like, I want to hang out with these people. These people, like, I want these people in my foxhole, because they're not worried that she doesn't have hair, or that she's, got some anger issues. So I was thrilled. That's the super long answer, but I absolutely love the Jack fans. I think anyone that gets behind a character like her is, got their head on straight. I could talk about her forever. So
what I liked about her is that she was just like the underdog. Like, people could possibly easily dismiss her, like, oh, she's just crazy. But then once you get into her backstory and you find out what Cerberus has done to her, and you're just like, right, now I get it, because, like, I'd be the exact same. And I think that's what I like about her, is that I've had times in my life where I've just been so angry I couldn't do anything but scream and swear. And But like watching the trailers before Mass Effect 2 came out, like what absolutely got me was Jack's trailer where she was just like pisses me off, and that was it. I was just like that, like her.
Yeah, I feel like she's pretty. I don't. She is what she is, and I think mostly in life, if you scratch the backstory of someone, they usually are. There's reasons that people are the way they are, and it's trite to say like you can't judge a book by its cover, but she really was an example of that, and it's usually the people who are the toughest who have, the gooey inside. I loved the fact that they made her more tender, after she has, romances with Shepard. I loved that because I can guarantee you that the Jacks out there are the people with the gooey centers, and there's a reason that they're like that. So, better to find out, because there's usually some, the person on the inside is well worth knowing.
Exactly. The way I saw it is just like she just put up this shell because she'd had nothing but people crap on her entire life. So it's completely understandable.
Yeah, I would have liked to see her. I mean, I would have liked to see more of her story just in general, just because I like the character so much. I would love to see where she could go. But I loved that. I would love to see more characters, more female characters, especially in video games. They're getting better. There's more variety, but not every woman is 6 feet tall with flowing, red hair and thigh-high boots. And
I'm 5'1", so I don't fall into that category.
Yeah, I mean, and not everyone is your kind of standard beautiful girl, and that doesn't mean that they don't, that there's not something there. And the less that we concentrate on the way people look and the more on what they have to offer. I loved it with people like, she's always on my team because she can do this. And, just to kind of encourage people to look a little bit harder and encourage girls to be who they are and not worry about, you can fucking scream and swear and freak out, and it doesn't make you a horrible person.
Just makes you
be
a
who you are. Yeah, just be who you are, and and be on some sort of journey to get to a place where you have some peace, and it's just a good life lesson, I think. So I'm very proud of her, and I love the fans. I'm very, very happy that people like her and relate to her.
She should do a phone-in. People could ask her like about their problems in life.
Exactly. Yeah, but which Jack would you want to do it?
I don't know. I think the first Jack.
Because the first Jack from 2, it would be
I just broke up with my boyfriend. I don't care.
Just fucking blow him up. Yeah, still kill him. But yeah, she's been a high point of my career for sure.
I know I have many of Jack, but do you have a favorite line? Like, is the one that stands out to you from the series, like either 1 or 2, Mass Effect 2 or 3?
I like the put your balls in your purse, let's go kick some ass line from 3.
That's my favorite.
Because it's very akin to something that I say all the time. So I was like, great. I had a lot of people leaving messages on my phone. Now who's the badass biotic bitch line from 2. My friends thought that was just the funniest. There was a lot of, that was probably the most used line in my life from 2. And then I have a quote from her, and I actually don't know where it fell in the game, but I know it was from 2, but it was about the more people that die, the better my chances are surviving. It's simple. I just thought that was kind of like a fantastic attitude that she had in 2, of just like, the more people that die, the better my chances are surviving. It's that simple. I think it was something like that. I mean, she had a lot of great lines, and she's badass, so pretty much any. Those are the ones that stand out sort of on the top of my head.
Definitely the purse one for me. Just like I say it to a lot of people in real life, and they're just sort of like, "Oh, what are you doing?" They're like, "Yeah, get your balls out your purse." But then the other one was when you first meet Jack in Mass Effect 2, and Shepard's all, "I'm trying to rescue you," and she's just like, "Shit, you sound like a pussy." That was it.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, there was. I loved the balls one, and there was also I loved the fight in particular. I remember recording the fight with Miranda on the deck where she's calling her a cheerleader and stuff like that. That was very reminiscent of like something I would have said in high school.
I will smoke the walls with you, bitch.
Yeah, maybe not that so much, but yeah, probably. But just the whole idea that, like the whole scenario of Jack being the kind of unhinged one who's like a little bit of a mess, but kind of punk rock. And then the really well put together one just sort of made me laugh. That was, it totally resonated with me. Like it felt very high school, but also very heightened. And so I loved that whole thing. That really, although I don't remember all the, quoting the lines, but the scenario, I remember just giggling in the booth and being, oh, this is going to be great. Absolutely.
Well, it was. So that's one of my standout scenes, really, just because Miranda's being such a bitch as usual. And then Jack's just like, I'm going to beat your face off.
Yeah, totally. I just, it's for every girl who's never, who hasn't felt like she's pulled together enough or pretty enough or, delicate flower enough to really the girl. I grew up with a very girly sister, and that was just not me. So that kind of frustration of having this person like right in your face, that's just the complete opposite of you. And, people sort of think she's great and you're just like, oh.
Okay. So, thank you very much for answering all the Jack questions. I pretty much like fangirled throughout the entire of that thing. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. And thank you. I think you did a great job. I think the only thing is you might need to have like a beer in your hand when doing Jack, because she's a little, I think you just need to rough her up just a hair, but she's great. You're doing a fucking great job. And I like the attitude and yeah, just maybe I would tell you to go smoke a pack of cigarettes, but I can't tell you that. So maybe
I could have done that before, but now I can't.
No, but you know what you can do? Just talk a lot.
Yeah, I'll just scream before I start recording.
Yep. Screaming into a pillow always helps.
I don't need the pillow. My neighbors already think I've been murdered about 10 times. It's fine.
Sure. Absolutely.
So before we let you go, I need to ask, what's your opinion about Koobismo's Marauder Shields comic?
I think it's great. I mean, I love I was just thinking like the music was great as far as just, I mean, that's something that I could listen to without the visuals. I mean, you really could just do it as an audiobook. Obviously the visuals are great too, but I think, again, I mean, I think Natalie's doing a great job. The only thing I would say is, she's just a hair, like make her just a little, drink a beer or something, like, kind of tap in a little bit to that. Like, it's a little more rough with Jack, maybe a hair.
Can I just note that this is Courtenay Taylor telling me to get drunk?
That's what I do. Just
that's a binding contract. That is
not drunk, but I'm just, like just a little. I mean, she's still a little pretty. So I would say, like, maybe scream a little bit. Think about somebody who, I'm sure you can dredge somebody up, who pisses you off, and just kind of layer that in. But I mean, I think it's great. Honestly, I think when I first heard the clips that you sent me, I was like, wow, wow, she sounds like me. But it was, a little scratch, and like I felt like, wow, this girl has really paid attention, and I was really impressed and very honored.
Well, thank you. I'm very, very honored that you said that, and I'm just gonna go die now.
Don't die, please. I just think that you guys are so cool for, taking the reins and doing something, like continuing these stories and these different possibilities. I mean, I sort of waxed eloquent about that, but I mean, gosh, how many times do you walk out of a movie? Well, maybe not all the time, but you walk out of a movie and you're like, I wish it wasn't over. I want a little more. To go ahead and do that for yourselves and other fans. I have to say, the Mass Effect fans are incredible, and I've been in a few video games, and I've just never seen as much art. Such creative people, and I think part of it is obviously the technology is available to do that kind of thing more and more now, but Mass Effect fans in particular seem to be incredibly creative and passionate, and I'm just really impressed.
What does the future hold for Courtenay Taylor, and is there anything you would like to share with the fans on what's coming up for you?
I am Ada Wong in Resident Evil Damnation and Resident Evil 6. And a few months ago, we just released Resident Evil Operation Raccoon City, which was my first spin of doing a little Ada Wong. So I'm very excited about that. And Resident Evil 6 comes out in October. So keep an ear and a controller out for that.
You've talked about roles as Dead to Rights, where you've been prepped for that role by watching a lot of Nancy Grace. What would you say has influenced you in your career for the role of Ada Wong?
I thought about like James Bond, kind of, with her, like a female James Bond. That's just, because I didn't kind of go back and look at what the other actress who's voiced her in the past had done. I just kind of came with my idea of who she was. And, she's very sophisticated and sexy and good looking. And she's, one of the hottest drawn characters in games. And so I was trying to kind of draw on who that would be in like sort of popular culture. And there's not a lot of, I just kept thinking sort of James Bond. So, and it was interesting to do something that was sort of 180 degrees from Jack, someone who has a lot of impulse control as opposed to someone who doesn't. So, it was, I didn't have as much to draw on in my personal life, like as I did when I worked on Jack. Unfortunately, I've never been a spy or, run around in a sexy long dress with a gun. So that's on my bucket list. I'm working on a few games. So if people are interested, they can hang out with me on Twitter, and have a whatever fan page on Facebook. And I usually post things as they come down the pike. I'm in the process of shooting a pilot next month that I can't really talk about, but she's Jack-esque, an on-camera version of, not version of Jack, but she can't keep her opinions to herself, and she gets in trouble for it, and it's sort of a political project, so it'll be very interesting to bring a little bit of Jack to an on-camera role. And then you should keep an eye out for, I have a small cameo in something called Oshi High School Battle, which is on Smosh. It's on Smosh's new cartoon channel. I hope I'm getting this right. Shut Up Cartoons, which debuts on the 13th of July. And you can actually look on my Facebook page for the trailer for that, and it's a live action with animation cartoon that is super inappropriate for children, from what I can tell.
We'll make sure to post all the links to the interview on the same page here, so anyone can just click on the links below.
I'll find you a couple of things that I can send to you, but generally most of that stuff is posted. But Oshi is going to be pretty funny, and there's already I play a MILF on one of the episodes. It's pretty funny, and they're friends of mine that sort of masterminded this, and so that's something to definitely keep an eye out for if you're a fan of anime.
So that was Courtenay Taylor. Courtenay, thank you so much for your time. It's been said the worst role is the ones that no one remembers, and as we can see, that does not apply to you. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure. I really appreciate it. And thanks to all the Mass Effect fans out there.